prattle on in their bivvies with a foreskin banger hanging out their mouths and generally thinking they're having a good time.
Wind was hacking down one end, gone down there, and the whole stock is just there. Nobody's on the lake, absolutely pissing down with rain.
And literally 2 inches from it, and it was going to eat it, a lead landed from the other side of the bay, and thankfully there was a massive locked gate up there then, and I couldn't get to him because I wanted to. He wouldn't have been walking straight for the rest of his life. I tell you, I think it's wrong. You're not fishing how everybody else is fishing. You're fishing it in a completely unnatural way. You should have told him to reel in and go to some public water somewhere and tell me his tactics are good then, and I might even listen.
I'm on the theme of Oasis at the moment.
Your memory's going, he'll take your licence off.
Dean, you've been on the theme of Oasis for the last 50 years.
Yeah, I have, to be fair. Yeah,
I don't like them.
Just like your fishing, Dean, you got to stop living in the past.
As you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, Lewis Porter is back in the building, fully recovered from his hangover.
Massively overrated, Oasis.
No. Mate, there'll be people throwing things at their telly now.
It's my unpopular opinion. Let's bring that bit back.
Yeah. They're a lot better these days, though, with the power of technology, auto-tuning and AI and everything now. They've never been as in tune. I much prefer One Direction. Proper band, proper band making proper
realistic music
proper attitude.
Brilliant musicians.
Ideal. Guys, welcome back to the All-Ways Carp Fishing Podcast. Once again, I'm joined by the original crew, which is Scotty Day, Mr. Ian Chilcott, Lewis Porter and Harry Charrington. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you've probably realised we've got our own designated channel. New mics have been given by the powers that be, so please give us a like and a subscribe to the new channel so you can keep up to date with future podcasts and we can keep on growing this channel throughout the rest of the year and years to come. Guys, I want to put quite a few things to you in this podcast about your own angling, what you've been up to, summer fishing, but first off, I'm going to kick things off with, have anyone been out? Have you been out fishing lately? Who's been getting amongst them? I
haven't been getting amongst them. I did go fishing, and I don't really want to talk why I haven't been back to the water in question. And I did film the first couple of days. I'd never seen the water before in my life. I knew what lived in it. And there was a slight altercation, and I don't think I've ever been so insulted personally in my whole life by a certain individual who will remain nameless, unfortunately.
For about 5 minutes.
And I'm reeling after that, and I don't know what to do at the moment.
Everyone's going to be guessing in the comments.
They can guess away because I'm not going to say not at the moment, and I'll see where it goes. I want to go back because it's somewhere that just brings back everything about the past to me.
This was just new water that you've been waiting.
I've been waiting a long time to get a ticket for, and
you waited a long time to get a ticket. You get your new water, and you have a bit of a shit start.
Yeah, it was, and not my fault. And I didn't actually say a great deal about it. I let this single person blow up in a way I've never seen him blow up, and so I've just sort of took a step back, assess the situation, but it's where I want to go and fish and do the fishing that I want to do. So I've got to do it. I've got other tickets, but I've got, I want to film this and tell the story, and I like to tell a story. So that's what we're going to do.
I've just noticed, Chill, you're blending into the surroundings extremely well. I can pretty much just see your head.
I'm more camouflaged now than I ever was in my army life. Do you know what I mean?
In the chair,
and I'm not being funny.
Whoa! He's going boxes on.
We've got underwear on show here.
I thought I'd put my boxes on and give you all a little bit of a momentary glance at my underwear, which probably put you off your Weetabix. But I do apologise for that.
I've got PTSD from my stint in hospital, Chile, and that was nearly... It's a good job there'll be plenty of people just listening to this and not watching it.
If you are, I just flashed off my belly and my camoed underpants on. But it's kind of cool. I've even, let's be honest about it. It gets ridiculous, doesn't it? I've even got a camouflage pair of flip-flops on, which is just... wonderful, I wished I'd had all this lot when I was in the army. You know, going off and doing some of the things I did, looking like a Fox advert would have been quite amusing, actually. But there you go.
Jan Porter would be very proud of you, mate.
Jan would
Bless
have been,
him.
yeah, bless his heart, God rest his soul. Yeah, he's, he's a lovely guy.
He was, he was an awesome bloke, wasn't he? I met him a
Talking
few
about
times.
bad people at the moment, it's nice to throw a good name in there.
Yeah.
And I got on so well with Jan, I loved him.
Yeah, he was one of life's good guys, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
The man in red and the man in camo.
Yeah, he changed, didn't he? He used to be shine like a Belisha beacon at times, didn't he? But strange.
One extreme to the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't he have a massive? He had his van completely camoed up as well, didn't he?
He had it. Well, I think him and Lee Jackson had it done at the same time. They had the old plastic cover on it. What do they call it? A wrap. Yeah.
Right. And he had his guitar.
Yeah.
Camo as well. Yeah. Do you remember that? Did he do? Was it Carp Crew?
I should get.
Was he on
mine
Carp
camo.
Crew?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
there
so.
playing his camo.
I ought to get my guitar camoed up. That's really good idea.
There you go. Fox
like
Camelite Guitars is the next product. Scott.
I wonder if I can get some done in our thing. I'm going to have to, like the fox's head, rearing his head on my van. No, I'm not doing it on my van. Guitar would be all I'll do.
So, Luke, now you're recovered, mate, and hopefully back to normal. How are you feeling? Are you 100% or are you still...
Oh, no, he's been moaning this morning about him being ill about something else.
Normal is, very subjective opinion, I think. But yeah.
And that stemmed from before your illness and all, didn't it?
Yeah, I feel quite
privileged.
back to full health on that front. Got a bit of an ear infection at the minute, but I don't want to complain. I don't want to complain too much, but yeah.
How's married life treating you?
Just as stressful as it was before being married.
Yeah, congratulations, dude,
Thank you.
publicly. I absolutely I'm so delighted for you and Abby.
For all the
Bless your
women
hearts.
watching this, unfortunately, I am off the market now. So, yeah.
Can I just say as well, Lou, I thought, fair play, and just true your style, in the last podcast, we were putting questions to Rob, and you took time out of your wedding day to put questions to Rob, which I thought fair play. There's not many people who do that. We saw your wife in the background, looking all amazing on the rocks, and then you were doing your carp questions
Get
to
paid
Rob.
quadruple pay if you do it on your wedding day. You do.
No, it was really good, mate. Fair play
nice
to you.
touch.
But in terms of your fishing, then, have you got any? Are you heading back soon? Have you got an idea of when you're going out next? Now you're back to full health.
I did have 1 4-hour session last weekend, a weekend before, on a no publicity venue. Had 1 fish, just under £28.
Nice,
Beautiful fish.
Have you said too much already?
I've got a feeling the owner will be okay with what I've said so far. I haven't given away too much, but so I had 1 fish, and
360.
No. they're banned on that particular venue. Actually, no, it was
good reason as well.
It was on my blowback rig I'd been using very well in the spring with the long shank wide gapes.
Nice.
Double 15mm bottom bait though.
Double bottom bait?
Yeah.
When was the last time anyone put a double bottom bait on?
Yeah.
I do it all the time with the bottom bait.
My hair was too long.
I thought you used those little barrels, the little barrels with a piece
tiny
of corn
pop
on
up
top.
on the end of it nowadays. We've got a lot of waters you go to are banned plastic.
That's true.
I mean, it's not a big deal, is it? I mean, because you could screw a little bit into one of your.
But then if you're putting, I guess if you're putting a pop up on, that's more a snowman than a double bottom bait, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. I'll
Like
go along with that.
two
Last time I did that.
boilies
Yeah,
on
these
the
were
hair.
2 15mm hard to the deck. Reason was because the rigs had been
Ashmead was the last time I did it.
the rigs were tied
was-
from before where I'd been using snowmen. But I didn't want to use a snowman because the water I was fishing, it's very murky water, so I didn't think that having bright colour was going to do a lot. So I wanted more scent, and so I thought, well, I'll put 2 bottom baits on because the hair's too long to have 1. It would have been a too longer hair, so put 2 on. Had a bite.
Very tactical decision there.
Yeah.
Can't be asked tie another hair.
I'll
put 2 on.
2 on.
As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. You know, if you think you're doing the right thing, it did the
fish
job.
wasn't
Yeah.
too happy because you've got a hook in it.
Bottom
But,
baits, it's a really interesting subject, all in itself, bottom baits, I think, because we used to, years and years ago, when I first heard about the hair rig in the early 80s, we used to try and separate them. So you'd have your hook bait quite near to the hook itself, and then you'd put maybe even a bit of tubing in between the two baits, so it would swing a long way. It made it really difficult, I think, for carp to eject a big long bait like that. Hopefully that keeps the hook in the mouth a little bit longer. But the other thing was, you used to get tench all night long, on running leads as we used to use back then and everything, all night long, and then all of a sudden the rod would heave over because the tench is just pulling away at that one. And they didn't. He did hook the odd one, obviously, but
I think the last time I actually fished double bottom baits would have been in early 2000 when I was fishing at Northey Park, and I was fishing double bottom baits, and I was baiting up with double bottom baits as well. So I was getting the boilies, and with a bit of spaghetti, joining them together with a piece of spaghetti in between, and then baiting up with double bottom baits, fishing double bottom baits, and did really well.
Take a while to prepare a kilo of double bottom baits. You're only
fishing for one bite at a time, so you're only having a little scattering. But it was. It was a good method. It worked really well. I've never done it since.
Matching the hatch to the umph degree, isn't it? Yeah, I remember they held a match at Horseshoe years ago with all the stars of carp fishing back then. Rob Malin was there, Tim Paisley, and a few others. Like Kev Knight was there from Mainline, and a few other people. But they were. I can't remember who it was. Was it Martin Clark? It might have been. He was doing that, and that was way back then. And
when we were fishing Reedsmere back in the 90s, I remember Mark the Bull was doing that. Double bottom baits, 12 millis, and then doing the same thing with spaghetti. We used to use those black Anglers Workshop spods, I don't know if you remember them, from donkeys years ago. Yeah, you used to spod them double bottom baits out with that.
Yeah.
And that's just, you're trying to emulate the carp picking it up, not getting caught, and then obviously just
matching the hatch, isn't it?
Yeah, because obviously they're seeing single round boilies all the time, and then if you've got a double one, if you're catapulting freebies out, the chances of two landing side by side is nigh on impossible unless you're on a slope and everything rolls down and meets together. So you literally, you've just got these two baits together in a little spread, and they're now sucking at a certain rate to get two baits in at once, you'd like to think. So by the time they suck your hook bait in,
I do it with PVA bags, with my bottom baits, PVA bags. I sit there and I'll tie up 30 little bags, something like that. And if I'm fishing at 80 yards, I'll just stick a stone in it as well. And it's normally 10mm boilers, a few response pellets, maybe put the old dip on it, a bit of cell dip or whatever. But you can fire them out through a catapult absolute miles if you get the right stone in it. And again, exactly that principle. I was baiting up around a hook bait. I remember that Hendricks on the first night I ever fished there. That's how I baited up the first rod. And at 6:30 in the morning, that's the one that ripped off.
Quite in a similar vein to that, I know in Italy it's a particularly popular method, is using the method blaster on a rod, making up balls of scalded pellets. Putting out a big bed of these balls of scalded pellets and then fishing solid bags over the top, and it's you're creating exactly the same, or fishing method feeders over the top.
Well, I wish I had the patience sometimes when people say that, because you know exactly what's going to happen. You get those pellets, those wet, damp pellets they're going to break down so quickly. They almost leave nothing but smell and taste in the water, don't they, for the fish? And the only solid thing then is your solid bag and what you put in it. So it's such a good tactic.
I think more importantly, you get it down to the bottom.
Yeah,
that's it. If you want to feed 2mm pellet in 20 foot of water, it could be everywhere.
Well, they'd probably land in the next acre of water, wouldn't they? They could do.
Remember where we went to do filming for August launch stuff?
Yeah.
That margin was just alive with anything you threw in that margin.
Well, I don't think it was just the margin. I think it was literally from the margin all the way out.
The bit you could see, literally it was just getting hammered straight away.
With rudd, so many rudd.
A lot of them do that. But that feeding activity, again, I think that, that what the method you were suggesting, that attracts smaller fish. And I still believe that, especially in a well-stocked lake with the difference of fish in it. The little ones start doing it, and the bream maybe come in, and then the tench, and then ultimately the carp are, their feeding senses are aroused by what the other fish are doing. So it works a treat. You're saying about things that float away, and I've seen it spotted in waters where your boilies land there, your pellets land there, your bit of hemp lands a mile and a half over there in 12 foot of water. But I said to Rob the other week when he was in here, Rob Hughes, I was firing the 5th one he ever did, those underwater things for the mags. I was firing out those bags at about 50, 60 yards, and he filmed them all going down because he thought they'd never hit the bottom in about 14 foot of water. They were solid all the way down to the bottom. It hit the bottom, and they broke up in about sort of 10 seconds, which just goes to show it was a tactic that worked. So, yeah.
Going back to your double bottom baits, I think the reason why they work is you find it difficult to eject.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm saying.
They're not targeting, there's a double. I think it's just like, they're just harder to get out of the mouth, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's what makes it difficult.
See, that's one I don't think I'd ever really heard of it, because obviously it was a tactic that was slightly more popular probably before my time.
Well,
but you don't see anything about it now. I think that would be a great thing for us to do a video on it and see.
Well, not just double bottom baits. All of us in here, everybody we know, any fishing that we've done over the last couple of years, when was the last time you saw somebody pick a bait out the bag that they're feeding up with and just fish with? We've all got pop-ups, wafters, whatever.
There was a colour involved in there at some point as well.
Yeah. We're all doing different stuff now, but like 20 years ago, you went fishing with a kilo of bait, you put one on the air, you chucked it out, and that was it.
I remember we had an open day
anymore
at the shop, and we had Sean Harrison there from Quest Baits. And on the back of the Quest Baits packet, it used to give his tips of using a boilie and a half, and then turning the half around the other way, and fishing it that way. And when he'd say fish whole boilies and chops, and you fish that on the hair, a round and a half. Yeah. And that was on the back. And that was, obviously Sean was sort of a big sort of angler in the sort of early 90s, wasn't he, and whatever. And that was his tactic. And as H just said then, it was a tactic that was almost forgotten about now.
Yeah. I remember reading mags, like before I was carp fishing, but reading carp mags in the 90s. And like, I'm sure quite a few people like doing that sort of like butterfly bait, where they cut bait in half, turn it round, and do it like that.
But again, I think that lends itself to difficulty in ejection, especially on a longer hair. I mean, I know a lot of people don't necessarily fish long hairs. They fish the one with the ring halfway. I forget what its name is now. It's got a name, hasn't it? But they use quite a long hair with it. And I think that the hair itself makes it difficult for the carp to eject it. But you make the hook bait a little bit unaerodynamic, if you like, and then it gets that vortex can't deal with it as easily as it can with a completely round bait.
Yeah, there's so many of these things that people used to do that they don't, never happen anymore because it's not in vogue. But you get someone like pinning their colours to the mast and like going, if they're on the right venue for that, they'll
it used to work everywhere. I remember, I've probably told this story, when that yellow became the thing to do. And we went up to Manor when it was very low stock using Activate when it first came out. A dull, browny colour. Bottom baits, 15 or 18 mil straight out of the bag they were. Double baits at times, 18 and a 15, whatever. And we did really, really well. And they didn't do very well on yellow. Interesting. It's a very interesting subject.
When was the last time you guys used a pellet on the hair? Because we feed a lot with pellet. Have you ever used a pellet on the hair?
Last time I used a pellet on the hair would have been in 2015 in the World Championships on the Ebro.
Right. Okay.
But like they loved pellet, and if you had anything other than a pellet on the hair, you weren't catching it.
Did you not use it when you went? You was on the Ebro with pictures doing a challenge after that, though. Did you not use pellets then?
No, sorry. That would have been because I'd have used exactly the same tactic. So, the last time that I went to the Ebro, when was that? That would have been 2018, 2019 with pictures. But, using a 40mm pellet in a solid bag of 2mm halibut pellets. And it was, really, really good. But then the problem with it is that they break down, and then, I don't know, you then use something like armour mesh, but it just becomes a little bit more of a faff. But they are so good. So good.
I used to see people on the car park like this, and we're talking years ago now, and they used to prattle on in their bivvies with a foreskin banger hanging out their mouths and generally thinking they're having a good time, trying to find more and more tricky ways of presenting like a 4mm pellet on a hair. And I'm thinking, why do you want to do that? And, because every fish I ever saw caught out there was caught on a reasonably sized boilie hook bait, and the things that used to come out up there were just, you'd blow your mind.
My first ever session on the heron at Bushy Park, which if you lived in Surrey or around that sort of area, I don't know whether it still is, but was quite a sort of iconic venue down there, and at the time, so this would have been the early to mid 2000s, it had I think like 15 to 20 30s in it, and I think 3 or 4 40s, so like a really good score. And it was about 3 foot deep and only 2 acres, so like some really good fish. My first ever session down there, I just picked up my ticket from Hampton Court Palace and went down there, and I put 2 little 6mm. There were the match fishing pellets, the soft ones. Put 2 of those on a hair, and had a drilled out 14mm halibut pellet on the other hair. Wind was hacking down one end. Gone down there, and the whole stock is just there. Nobody's on the lake. It's absolutely pissing down with rain. No one's on that lake, and this is it's busy. It's normally a busy lake. It's days only, and I've got there. They're all there, and I've literally hooked on some mesh bags with my 2 little 6mm pellets, and then my 1 40mm pellet. Dropped the 40mm pellet in. Dropped the 6mm pellet in. As I've turned round, that one's gone. The 6mm's gone. Playing that just as that one's going into the net, which I think that was like a mid 20. My other rod's gone, and that was £35.
Wow.
My first 30.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Good nice.
Yeah. But that's I used to always use pellets. That period of time, always.
Amazingly, in these conversations we talk about things we used to do. And none of them do it anymore. No. Do you know what I mean?
Feed pellets.
There's so many things. Feed pellets, no problem.
I can remember when I was a teenager, and Catch-22 was like really popular as a commercial day ticket venue. And
just opened up again.
It's just reopened, and it was dominated by people scalding pellet and wrapping it around a feeder and then fishing big halibut pellets. But people were putting it in such high quantity, really oily pellets, led to fish dying, and a few lakes in that area, and sort of travelling near my way from Norfolk, banned trout pellets because they kill carp. They're blah, 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 ridiculous. But they banned them. And then Kevin Maddox brought out a thing called the carp nugget, which was
a trout pellet.
Halibut or trout pellets. Well, they were called Kevin Maddox carp nuggets. So we were fishing on a lake where pellets were banned with Kevin. Are these allowed? What are they? Kevin Maddox carp nuggets? Yeah, they're fine. But they were tubs of hook baits. They weren't like 25 kilo sack. So you weren't doing it. You weren't hoofing it in. But just by calling them carp nuggets, they were no longer pellets.
Different.
Fantastic. Wow.
That is amazing.
Yeah, but we did really well with them carp nuggets.
It used to be a problem. I remember lakes back then in sort of the 90s, really, 94, 95, 96. There was a lot going on at Yateley then. I mean, those fish were so big and iconic. So people were using the same sort of tactics. But the oils, Premier Baits brought them out. And you'd see people baiting up, pounds and pounds of bait going in, and the water was just flat calm. And then the next day, you go down where the wind was blowing nice and quiet in the morning, and there was just an oily, thick, horrible scum over the water. And if it happened again and again and again, which it did do, that scum got further and further and further out in the lake. And although I don't think, pellets ever killed a carp themselves, the results of them can. And the oils as well.
The pellets back then were a lot more oily than
now.
Now.
If you was a human and you had a diet like that, constantly such a high fat diet or whatever, your arteries are gonna get clogged, and it's not going to be good for your heart. And I think that was a lot of what was happening. And I think with that oil slick that's coming on the surface, I'm no expert, but it'd be interesting to hear from somebody who is, whether if you've got the film of oil on the surface, whether the oxygen from the air can be penetrated into the surface to dissolve with air pressure, or whether that.
See, that's why we will get
oil.
Simon Scott or Viv Shears in here, something like that. I mean,
my guess would be it would make it harder for the oxygen to come in if it's got a film of oil on the surface.
You see it if you're floater fishing and you've put some oil on your floaters. It flattens off so if you've got a bit of a wind on, it flattens off the surface. So surely
wind's not turning the water.
Wind's not turning it over.
No, so it's a real. But like you say, nowadays people aren't overloading things with. But you still can get oil to put on your bait.
The science that has got into, I think, the development of pellets specifically for rearing carp is now so much further on than.
Yeah, you've got to remember now. There's in Europe, especially, there's mass carp farms to rear carp to feed to humans, like in Croatia and places like that. So the big companies like Aqua and Coppens have spent infinitely more money on developing food than any bait company has ever done, never will do.
Carp nuggets.
You wouldn't be feeding those carp a diet that was going to then mean that the human eating it was going to suffer. You can't, it's for the
it's got to be.
It's got to be of human food, ability. So whilst the human isn't necessarily going to want to eat those pellets, you fancy those pellets are not going to be really bad for the fish either now.
Isn't it interesting? We're now chatting about carp bread for the table or whatever, but how little we use a pellet. That we know those carp, since they had a yolk sac attached to them, have been fed all their lives. Yet we don't put it on a hook. It makes me think.
It's more difficult to use thean a boilie.
Unbelievably, the day that I caught Jack out of Horton, this is 1996, that morning I'd gone on a wander with Keith, God rest his soul, Keith Jenkins, and the first attempt, it followed a mixer 20 yards into the Church Bay, and it just followed it under the water, about 2-3 inches away from it, just followed it. It knew it was there, and it turned away in the end, and I went down in the corner of Church Bay, and there it was, Jack and a few other fish, and I threw a handful of pellets in, not a handful, about 10 pellets, and they took every single one before they hit the bottom. So I chucked another load out, and they ate every one before they hit the bottom. So what I did, in the end, out of my tackle box, took me about 10 minutes to do it. I super glued a tiny bit of cork onto the bottom of the hook, underneath the eye, if you like, there, and super glued 2 pellets to the back of the hook. And I flicked it out about 10 times before I could get the sinking right, and threw it out. And Jack came up, and literally 2 inches from it, and it was going to eat it. A lead landed from the other side of the bay, and thankfully there was a massive locked gate up there then, and I couldn't get to him because I wanted to. He wouldn't have been walking straight for the rest of his life, I'll tell you. But unbelievably, I went round and caught him off the top about 3 hours later. So the job was done in the end. But the pellet thing, I think about that all the time. When a carp's wafting things up off the bottom, so often you can see them taking stuff that ain't on the bottom. And that flanking a lot of the times, I think is I don't know. I've said a million times I don't think carp are intelligent, but things teach them through instinct to do things, and maybe wafting them up off the bottom and taking them is one of those things.
There's a great video on YouTube, Baitworks YouTube channel, I think it is, Mike Holly. And he went last year, I think it was, to Millhays Lake in Devon or Dorset, somewhere beginning with D down south. And that venue is the same owners as the Priory Fish Farm So all of the fish that are stocked in Mill Hayes are fish that they've reared on their own fish farm, hand-picked stunning carp.
Are you on the site? Oh, Ben Gratwick's. Is that it?
It used to be. I'm not sure who. I'm not sure of the.
They're the Leany strain, aren't they?
They're Leany Dink crosses, I think. So Mike's gone there on a family holiday. So I don't think he was night fishing from memory. I think he was only doing days. And because they're pellet reared fish, he was using, I think from memory, 4 pellets on like really fine hairs, small pellets. I'm not talking like Ebro donkey choker type pellets or anything. Little fine pellets on really fine hairs. And he caught loads and loads of fish. And I think the breakdown thing didn't matter because he was getting bites so quick. Like he wasn't worried that they were going to last. Yeah. They only needed to last so long. And normally with our fishing, we think, we'll put a rod out and don't expect to catch anything for 24 hours. So I need to make sure my bait will last for 24 hours. But would you not rather put a bait out that's going to get you a bite in an hour? And therefore not worry about that. When we're in the Ebro, it's day fishing and we're catching fish because
and they don't mind a recast.
No,
you could get that's it.
When I fished the Ebro, we were using probably 20 mil, the bigger pellets. And they've been glugged in oil heavily, so that slows the breakdown time on them. But they last fine for hours.
That's on the Ebro. We were making sure, and when I fished with pictures as well, which I think is one of the reasons why I beat him on that session, was that I was making sure that I was doing 2-hour recasts to ensure that I still had a bait on. But why we don't use something like
it's
armor
an interesting
mesh?
point.
Like armor mesh would just solve. Like armor mesh solves that problem.
Perfect for it. But you brought out a really good point there. I mean, that guy was fishing in a certain way. He'd got himself into a certain situation. Now, is someone who's booked a swim on one of these massive complexes 2 years in advance, he's not going to put his free on the spot and bait the munger out of it and start. He's not going to do that. He simply isn't going to do that. He's going to have a durable hook bait out there all the time. So it's getting yourselves in those situations which people don't seem to want to do these days. That's why these things don't come up in the conversation.
But if anybody's listening to this and they're struggling for a bite at the minute, give double bottom baits a go or a pellet hook bait a go. Let us know in the comments or on the syndicate if you've tried pellets and double bottom baits recently, or even tried double bottom bait pellet and see how it goes. Let us know. Because I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of feedback's brilliant.
And it's also one of those things you think about every year. I think about doing something different, like using like exclusively pellets or whatever. But you don't tend to do it just because you know what works. Yeah. So I know that this works. So I'm just going to keep on doing it. But you never quite find what's on the other side.
This links back to your fisher syndicate. Everyone fishes. A new guy comes on the syndicate, doesn't know everybody, doesn't know the tactic, doesn't know the spot, goes somewhere else, fishes something different, catches all right, gets to know everybody, starts using what everybody else is doing, catch rate slows down. Next new person comes on, does something different, fishes a new spot.
Done that.
It's just...
I think there's a lot to be said about alternative hook baits, mate, isn't there? And I think a lot, if you go back to, chickpeas, cheese was what used to be one back in the early days, wasn't it? Little tiny blocks of cheese.
Cheese is crap, Dean.
Well, it used to be written a lot about.
Great for chub.
Not so good for
carp.
With that,
I caught quite a nice river carp once on cheese.
Go.
Fishing for chub.
Fishing for chub.
Don't
count then.
Yeah.
I've done a film this weekend, just gone, which is out in a couple of weeks' time. And the challenge was I had to use £5 worth of bait to go and catch some carp. I had to go to the supermarket. The only thing I could pick up from the supermarket was a little pot of peanuts and some cashew nuts. Right, I've got some hot sauce for 80p, and I also got some of the almost like maize that's been boiled hard. And I got them all. It was like 3 for 2s. You got it all. The whole package came to like £4.77. And Dylan, who's behind the cameras today, took a photograph of a beautiful 25-pounder caught on a cashew nut with a peanut on the back of it.
Yeah, that's great
expensive
bait.
to
Yeah,
shoot
I
off.
thought you was going to prove that cheese was a good bait. Sorry, I was
Right,
waiting for you to tell me that you caught on cheese. Sorry,
I don't know where the cheese is going.
I'm going out next, and I'm using cheese.
The thing is,
That's
what
it. From
you've
now until
done-
the end of the year, cheese
I will
only.
catch one on cheese.
I'll tell you what
Mr.
cheese is
Porter.
good for. Murray cod in Australia.
Is it?
Fantastic bait for
Really?
Murray cod, yeah.
When I go to catch a
Yeah.
£50 Murray cod, I will keep
There's
that in
a
mind.
guy from England who lives out there now, and he carp fishes in Australia, but he also fishes for Murray cod as well. And he's got some wicked brace shots where he's holding a carp.
I
and then,
think I've seen
Murray
who
cod.
you're talking about.
And they use hair rigged cheese, and they reckon that they don't actually like the cheese, but the natural food that they eat in the lake likes the cheese. So all this stuff is like a magnet to the cheese, becomes a ball of whatever these shrimp things
It's
are.
like pike fishing.
And then the Murray cod comes in and nails it,
Yes.
and the cheese is like the.
It's
And
like when
everyone's
you
like,
catch,
Maybe
catch
bloodworm love cheese and they just all be crawling around it.
It's like pike fishing. A carp fishing when you catch a pike. People think that the pike are eating boilies. No, they're not. They're eating all the little fish that are pecking at it. And but you're saying about hook baits, and this really wasn't a hook bait conversation. I don't think it
No,
came
we
round to
moved
what you
into
put
it,
on
didn't
the hook. What did you bait up with when you did that thing then?
I went out in the boat. I managed to get 2 59p worth pots of sweet corn.
There you go.
So I had
know
a
what you-
handful of sweet
Yeah.
corn, and it was like 3 or 4. Oh, there was some chickpeas
You
as well.
use
That I
some
got.
you use some of that hook bait as free offerings, is what I'm saying.
There was a couple of nuts in the freebies as well. Yeah.
So that sort of makes sense. You're still matching hats. Yeah. But I think that's what the point we're trying to get across here.
There's so many
It's like-
alternatives, isn't there?
Well, it kind
Yeah.
of comes round nicely because we said we were going to talk about some summer tactics, and I would say in the spring a bright one and is probably a better way of going. But come summer, matching the hatch is probably the way I would want to be fishing anyway. Like they've been hammered in the spring on people chucking bright ones, and matching the hatch either with boilies or preferably for me in the summer be tiger nuts.
Yeah.
And fishing a few tiger nuts and tiger nut hook baits and feeding a little bit of hemp and buckwheat as well if possible.
Would you feed tigers as well, Lou? Would
Yeah,
you
yeah.
crush them as well, or just?
Yeah, generally just whole tigers.
Okay.
Never loads and loads and loads, just enough to get a bite really. But I think the particles in the height of summer are generally more effective than boilies, and then when you come out of summer back into autumn, then back on the boilies again for me. But yeah, the match the hatch I think is definitely a good summer tactic.
So
I
you're-
agree. I agree to a point, but I've had too many good sessions where I've still been using a bright
Pink.
a bright pink one in the
Well, it's obviously
like
venue
that.
dependent. If you're fishing somewhere that's not getting hammered, it might. That
No, but,
tactic,
okay, so
or if
I-
it hasn't
I
been
used
hammered
it-
over years or whatever, or if you're fishing somewhere where it's really high stock and they're starving, hungry, and they'll eat anything. So it's all very
Yeah.
much dependent on the venue. I'm only talking about the type of lake I'm fishing. The way I would fish, I would want to be matching the hatch because they've had a battering all spring with every man
Yeah.
and his dog chucking Ronnie Rig spinners and yellow pop-ups.
I get like a little bit about all this bait stuff, and this is better at this time of year, and this is better at that time of year. I don't like saying it, Louis, but you are a very good carp angler, okay? Whether you like it or not. And you know, to a great extent, what's a good spot and what's a bad spot. And you know where to put that bait. So I think what you put there is kind of irrelevant. And because what I use boilies all the time. I cannot remember any fishing that I've done that doesn't include a boilies, whether that's a few broken up in the margin or I've spotted out 120 metres into a lake. I've always used boilies. I do change the amount that I use, and I change the sizes, and sometimes I'll crush them up and put some in. But if I put it in the right place, I think I'm going to get a bite.
But you
And I
don't live in a
think it's-
parallel universe, so you never know what the alternative was. If you come home having caught 5, you could have caught 10. You'll never. That's the beauty
and
of
I
it.
always say that.
Yeah.
I always say that. And we had that with Rob again the other week about, he reeled in and put a pink pop-up and an hour later we had a bite. There is nobody on the face of this planet or in universes beyond it that could tell you that hook bait that was there originally wouldn't have gone off an hour later.
No,
Nothing can tell you any different. And it's human perception of an animal that hasn't got a very big brain.
Yeah, but this is look, but like we say, we're not living in a parallel universe, so you're happy to continue to put boilies out depending on in different levels.
Yeah.
But and through your experience, that's what works for you. But I know for me, I like often I will change the bait that I'm using depending on the lake that I'm fishing, the fish that I'm fishing for, what whether there's silvers, whatever. And I think that tailoring what I'm doing to suit the situation catches me more fish.
Well, that's about angling. We talked about this a while ago. People have a set idea of what they're going to do when they get to a water. But adapting, changing, is, to me, it's the pleasure of angling. It's doing something different to suit a situation, to get the best out of that situation. And it's having the ability to angle. It's having the ability to think around a problem or think around a situation and an angle. I get more pleasure these days of changing things and then catching something because I've done something than sitting behind rods doing the same thing that everybody else has done, queuing to get the best swim just to catch a certain big fish. I'd rather go places and just do my own thing and catch fish and know that what I've done has been the reason why I've caught.
So sticking on that, so let's get him back to the theme of summer fishing, because let's talk about the sort of fishing that people are going to be doing right now. Like, Lucy, you were saying, like, match the hatch. What would the type of venue that you would be fishing this time of year, and what would be your sort of starting point, bait wise, spot wise?
Well, where I will be fishing, I should have been there the weekend just gone, but unfortunately one of my other lakes that I'm involved with had a big oxygen crash, and I ended up spending Friday night picking out dead fish, sadly, so I didn't get to go fishing. But where I will be fishing over the coming weeks, Green Acres, it's a gravel pit, very, very weedy, extremely weedy, clear water, hence why the weed gets so bad. Good head of fish. I think there's 300 fish in 15, 16 acres or something. So it's quite good stock. And tigers are allowed on there. Particles are allowed on there. So I would be fishing tigers. Won't be using loads of hemp because it's got a massive head of rudd in there, and I think the hemp is just you're going to feed the rudd. I'd put a bit of buckwheat, bit of tigers, and fish tiger nut hook baits, and that would be my starting point over the next few trips.
And are you putting in quite a lot, like to start with, bearing in mind there's 300 fish in there? Would you start off with quite a bit?
No, I'd only start with enough to get a bite, and then if the bite came quickly and on that particular lake, if they're on you, you can get a couple of 2 or 3 bites quite quick.
How much do you think is enough to get a bite?
I'd say it would be about a kilo.
Yeah,
kilo of mixed bait between tigers and buckwheat. That's,
I guess you're bearing in mind that
3 rods of fishing on that.
So 3 rods over a kilo, and also that's bearing in mind that rudd and stuff are going to.
Yeah, there's a chance that the rudd are going to. There's some tension there that may have a few of the tigers and the buckwheat as well. And I may well put some boilie in the mix as well, because again, with like 20 mil boilies with the rudd and stuff, you're getting something there. And if you caught a couple of the carp and they were passing the bait, the boilie on the mat, you might then change. You adapt to the situation or whatever. But yeah, tigers in the summer have always been my favourite way of fishing.
Because that's what I was going to say. Because earlier in the year, we spoke about on the podcast, you were fishing that same venue and you were pretty much just using boilie.
Yeah, just boilie. Snowmen with a bright one on top. I would have just been happy fishing a bright pop-up on its own, but because of the rudd, and other people catching rudd on spinners and whatnot, just with fluoro pop-ups, by putting a bigger hook bait on. I didn't have. Well, I had a couple of weird occurrences that may have been rudd, but then I never hooked them. But yeah, so yeah, in the spring, boilies, bright ones. In the summer, particles, tigers in particular. Back into autumn, back on the boilies again. See, that's for me. Winter, so, if I was going to go, I'd be using naturals, but I'll probably be chucking mackerel and smelt out in the winter for pike.
So like, I've used tigers and stuff in the past, but never sort of done it. Like I know you use them pretty much every single summer. The first time that I sort of saw that tigers are, or not necessarily are, but can be at certain places in the summer, a total game changer was when we filmed the challenge that came out at last Christmas with Moz
at Ham's Hall.
At Ham's Hall. And
was that when the owner gave him some tigers or something? Was that
the owner gave Moz some tigers. So we had fished for, I can't remember whether it was 24 hours or 48 hours, and we were all using variations on some boilie, maybe some corn, maybe some pellet, like variations on that, and none of us could buy a bite. And I'm sorry, Chili, but I am convinced that even if you'd have gone with your boilies, you wouldn't have had a sniff. There was just something up. And then Mozza, I think it was the second night, just got the owner gave him a bag of tigers, and he just decided to put 2 or 3 pouchfuls of tigers out and a tiger on the hook bait, and I'm watching him do it, and he's spreading these tigers about. This is never going to work. And I think he had 2 or 3. He normally does a few, so I think he had 2 or 3 bites. He had 2 or 3 bites that night, and it was like, oh, okay. And then the next morning he had a few more, and it's like, And then Mark changed over and had a bite like straight away, right. And it's like, wow, this is totally. And then I put them on, and like I 2 or 3 nights I hadn't caught a fish using normal bait, swapped to tigers, and like it was the only thing that they
fishing the same spots.
Fishing the same spots and also moving around. I did move around, but I think if I'd have fished tigers from the start, because I had fish on me at the start, I think I'd have caught.
So what do you reckon that is then, mate? Because that bakes my head a little bit. Because if you look at a tiger to a boilie, you're roughly talking the same sort of size and shape within a fashion. So what is it about a tiger that a fish goes, I'm having that now and not those boilies that we're led to?
I am not qualified to answer that.
You can't talk to a carp, but I would imagine most animals and humans have different taste and appetite at different times of day or different times of year or whatever. You know, like a bird will be in tune to what things are in flower or in fruit at a certain time of year, and they might eat something different in spring to what they would do in the summer because they have to change with the seasons. The carp's got all sorts going on underwater with natural food. In the spring, when the weed's not up, there isn't as much. The natural food's died off over winter, so they've maybe got higher requirement for protein because they're getting ready to spawn, and the boilies are full of protein, and they need protein to produce the yolk for their eggs. So, and that starts in that autumn period through winter into spring that they're producing the eggs. So maybe the protein requirement is of such that they need that. In the summer, they don't need so much protein, and therefore they're eating something. Who knows? It's science. We're not going to know without asking them. But you know, a human being wants something different for its breakfast generally than it does for its lunch or its dinner, based on some sense of something that's ingrained in us. There's very few people that would eat bodybuilders.
You can't eat kebabs for dinner. And breakfast.
You can, and have done, and continue to do so. But, you know, you'll get a bodybuilder who'll eat steak and eggs for breakfast, but generally, Dylan's just knocked his crutch over there in the background, if anybody heard that. You all right, Dylan? He's putting his thumb up if anybody's concerned about Dylan's health. He's got a poorly foot. The trip that Dean mentioned about how he went fishing with Dylan last week, he managed to spill a kettle of boiling
I
water
can
on
see
his
the
foot.
wound is still
Weeping.
seeping through his dressing. Oh,
Yeah,
bless.
we'll maybe drop a little cutaway in the YouTube video so people can see.
Getting mentioned in dispatches.
All he had to
too.
do was
Dylan's
make a cup of
foot.
tea. That's all he had to do was make
Yeah,
a cup of
couldn't
tea.
make a cup of tea, the poor lad. But yeah, I just know from a lot of experience now that particles seem to be particularly good in the summer. Dave Lane, when he fished on St Ives shallow pit for Colin the carp, great name for a carp, all summer people thought he was blanking and not catching any fish, and that in itself made the lake quite quiet, I believe, because people are like, well, if Dave Lane's not catching, what's the point in going? Which is a nice little tactic from him to keep his captures quiet.
Yeah.
And then when he caught Colin and pretty much everything else in the lake, he released a series of video diaries, sort of like, "Ba-da! I caught them all in the
all of
summer."
these.
And his big sort of tactical change was to put a lot of pigeon conditioner, a lot of particle. I don't know whether he was using tigers. My memory's terrible. I don't know if they're allowed or not on that lake. But he certainly swapped to a lot of pigeon conditioner and particle and away from the boilie. And he's a boilie angler, you know, like a really long-term chili. Obviously knows him very well. And if he believed boilies would have done the business for him, he would have continued to use them.
Yeah.
But he swapped onto particle, and it really was like a big eye-opener. And I've got a friend at one of the Fox-sponsored anglers, Dave Moncaster, who fishes a lake in Cambridgeshire not far from me. And last year he had a great spring, and then in the summer his catch rate tailed off, as did everybody's on the lake. And this is a lake where you're allowed to use bait boats and cameras and all that sort of stuff. So you've got as much in your favour as you're ever going to do. As Elliot Gray says, you are temping bowling with the rails up on there. You know, everything's in your favour of getting a strike. But it all tailed off. But they're all doing the same thing, boilie fishing and what have you. There's loads of tension there, so people are avoiding particles and pellets. And I was just on it, Dave. Particles, tigers, buckwheat, pigeon conditioner, like Dave Lane did it, blah, 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 blah. And he swapped, and because of his bait boat and you know, particles being relatively cheap compared to boilies, he was stoving the part. I hope Dave don't mind me giving away his edges there.
You totally played
I've
out.
absolutely screwed the lad over, bless him. But sorry, Dave, I need you to prove my point. It's not my fishing. Sacrifice, collateral damage.
He's about the easiest going guy you'll ever meet. But there's a good point on this. I mean, I do what I say on the tin. I am a mainline man. I don't make up stories as I see a million times over in the press. I catch him on what I say I call him on. It's normally a mainline product. Dave and all of us have been very lucky with Mainline have been producing ready-made tigers now, particle mixes and all the rest of it, and that's what Dave was using. Yeah. So he had that ability, you know, now to use it. And Dave's the same as me. He didn't want to use anything else because he's got a Mainline t-shirt on. That's what I'm using, and now he can. And I think it proved a point. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to discredit anything. It proved a good point.
Yeah, but as I was saying, with Dave Moncaster on this particular lake, he swapped to the particles and he was putting them in huge quantities with the boat. And Dave's one of these as well, he will get up and catch 15 tench and keep putting the rod back out, because the next bite might be a carp, whereas me or Scott, the rod would be up the bivvy after the second or third tench into darkness. Again, you know, the boat makes it very easy to do it because it's GPSed, it goes back out, and you know, so again, but you've still got to have the drive to get out, like to do it and not just go back to bed, regardless of whether the boat helps you do it. But he'll keep doing it, and that 15th or 16th bite will be a carp.
And it's the one. It all comes into good then, and you're like, it was worth
whilst
it.
everybody else was still struggling, he swapped onto the particle and got the catches. I think he as he does, he wouldn't just listen exactly to what I would say. He does his own thing, and I won't give those edges away and completely screw him over. But when it come to hook baits and stuff like that, it wasn't necessarily what I would do, but it worked really well. But it's on that particle base, and this year it's happened again. Same thing. Everywhere's fishing tough on that particular lake. People are struggling. I said to him, "Have you gone on the particle?" No. why not? Like you did last.
What you
did
doing?
last year, and then literally a day later, I get pictures of Burco boilers and everything. It's coming.
Everybody's there.
And then last week, £30 and a £20 in an overnighter on there again when it's fishing tough. So yeah, I've seen enough to think for me on weedy. I'm talking about weedy, clear gravel pit fishing. I'm not talking about like clay lined, freshly dug lakes and with no weed and nothing other than carp in or whatever. I'm talking about more of a naturally balanced ecosystem for my fishing. Particles in the summer. That would be my starting point. Not necessarily what I'd continue. I wouldn't be so bloody minded if I wasn't catching and people were catching on boilies to try and prove a point. I'll do whatever's needed to.
I've got things I can. I use response pellets. Do you know what I mean? And they break down so quickly in the water. They're not actually using them as a food source. And very often, and this will happen in the summer too, my spod will contain mostly response pellets with, say, 5 or 6 10 millers and a couple of 15s in it. And I won't put more than probably 2 or 3 on the spot either. I'll still spread it out a little bit so they're moving between mouthfuls, but and it breaks down and just leaves that hook bait, I suppose. But yeah, that's about the only change I'd make in the summer. But I've got nothing against
again in the comments
particle.
for people on their experiences, because you see a lot of time in the summer people putting up videos and stuff on their social media of where they're boilie fishing or whatever, and there's sheets and sheets of fizzing coming up on a spot, and it seems to take forever to get a bite. And for me, those fish are probably tuned in on the natural food, and then eventually they've caught on their boilie approach. And I think the particles would get them faster bites. And obviously within particles, sweet corn counts as a particle. We know that's a fantastic bait.
All time of year, but especially in the summer.
The thing is, what I'm trying to say with what I try and use what I use, which is boilies and response pellets, differently. Because to what I see a lot of people in the early part of the season, and they turn up with buckets of particles. It's a cheap way of them fishing and putting a lot of bait out. So it's basically I want to do something different. And as it comes into boilie time, I can, and they're getting more used to seeing boilies from people in little amounts, which this is going to sound awful. I'm in a position where I can put a lot more in. So I've got everybody baiting up with boilies on the lake in small amounts. I can go out there and put a couple of key out on one rod and
but
get the bites.
If you was campaigning on a venue and 2 or 3 people were week in, week out catching a good percentage more than you were, and they were using pigeon conditioner and tigers and stuff, would you continue to catch less because you were doing it your way, or would you join them as such?
I wouldn't go into particles. I can honestly say that I just wouldn't change.
Even if you thought that was going to catch you more fish, or the
you're talking about a time of year. It's a difficult one, real difficult one, isn't it? Because my campaign fishing is designed around catching the fish in September onwards. Really, I don't really want to catch him in June or July when he's completely spawned out. And you said an interesting point earlier on. A lot of people don't know carp start producing spawn again in September. So it's not just the food where they're putting weight on. They are not in a massive way, but they're
straight after they've spawned.
I think it's about 4 weeks. Roughly, about 4 weeks after they've spawned, they'll start to produce.
Well, that's why we talked about this not so long ago, because they went early this year in April. They've gone again and again and again because they managed to build it up and enough to.
I'll try and work my way into the system. You know what I mean, and that probably just more or less includes using more pellet than I would.
I guess you're thinking maybe a slightly longer game, as in
you would be.
Like if you're putting in boilies now, you're thinking I'm doing this now so that it works in September and October the way that I want it to work.
When the water's a bit quieter and blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean that's probably a massive part of how I fish in a campaign situation. You know, in others, I mean, those are so many places. I could give you just a million examples of people telling me utter rubbish about how to catch a carp there. So I do completely the opposite, and I catch them. And I think that is because I have an ability. It sounds awful because I keep saying it, to find the right place to put it. And it wasn't really that important what I used. Over time, when I've been introducing bait, the bait becomes very important, because then that's something they will see all the time. But initially, if you're putting it in the right place, you're going to get a bite. And I don't care what's on it.
I never used to think that you could tune a fish or like a carp into a bait, like a flavour of boilie, not like boilies in per se. But when I was editor on Crafty Carper magazine many moons ago, I used to do quite a lot of stuff with Ali Amidi when he was on his way up, as it were. And Ali had access to this venue in Essex. I can't remember what it's called.
Private venue.
But it was a private lake, about 4 acres, beautiful lake, really nice owner. And it was private just for the owner and a few friends. And Ali got permission to fish on there. And I went. He would catch him really well. And I went there, and I was able to put my rods out. And I'm thinking, how did he get permission to fish here? Anyway, it turned out he was putting a lot of boilies in to feed the owner's fish, because he could. Lots and lots and lots and lots of activate. And basically, those fish weren't seeing anything other than activate boilies. The owner was feeding activate boilies, and Ali was feeding activate boilies. And at the time, I used to get my bait off of Ian Russell Heathrow baits, the Stench tuna bait, real nice bait, done really well on it. So I go with Ali. He's like, you're going to get your rods in. Obviously, he's prime position because it's all about him for the magazine and everything. But still, I've got a nice swim, nice features and everything. And I put my rods out using a bait boat, don't mind to admit. And I think by the morning, Ali's had 4 or 5 fish. I've had nothing. And he all the time, you put the activator. I said, there's no wrong with the Stench, Ali. Like, it's a great bait. You know, they're carp. Anyway, he keeps going on. He has another bite. He went, go on, just humour me. So I take a stringer's worth of activate, hook bait, activate, bait boat it to the same set of pads where I've already put a load of Stench boilies, drop it out, less than an hour, it rattles off with a fish. And that was the first time that I started to think, actually, because I'd heard the stories about the Essex Manor and about the bait wars and establishing the bait and that, and thought, I don't think they could see a boilie as a natural food source. But for sure, if you was going to go to that lake, if you didn't use activate, you weren't going to catch anywhere near as many fish as somebody using activate, because that was their food.
You should have told him to reel in and go to a lake that represents what the people who are going to read that magazine have to put up with, not out of some favour because of what he could do for somebody. That's awful. There's so many things like that happen, and it just annoys me. I think it's wrong. You're not fishing how everybody else is fishing. You're fishing it in a completely unnatural way. You should have told him to reel in and go to some public water somewhere and tell me his tactics are good then, and I might even listen to
I
it.
was able to try and catch some of the nice fish that were in there, to be honest with you.
I don't mind you going as a guest, and I salute you for doing so. You catch some nice fish, but to show people that you're something you're not is wrong.
You see, I don't want to get too argumentative.
No.
It's not in my nature, but there was probably between the owner, Ali, and a few of the owner's mates, 5-6 people fishing it, but all putting in the same bait.
Activate,
Yeah. Now, in the last year that Raisbury was a syndicate, I think it had 8 members. So what's the difference? There's only 8 people can fish Raisbury. They can go in a boat. They can feed and feed and feed and feed. Whose phone's that? Oh my word, Harry!
1 o'clock already.
Yeah,
dinner time.
It is. But yeah, so I think him having that privilege still can represent a style. I'm not saying the most common style, because the most common style for our audience in the UK is day ticket fishing, and it's busy and it's it can be a
different world.
Yeah, just to get a swim's a result. But there are still syndicates that are quiet where you can pre-bait and establish bait, and very small syndicates. And there was a Terry Earn film come out last year, ESP, on a I think it's in Berkshire, real quiet, big lake, but it's got a 15-man syndicate on it, I think. And it's not only superstars who've got tickets there. The everyday man, if they knew the owner of the lake and did the work parties or got on the waiting list, however you get into that lake, could fish there. So I do think, in defence of Ali, and I think it was some bloody good fishing at that period of time. The fish were stunning. I hope the lake's still going and the owner's still healthy and everything, because it was a great place.
What about you, Scott? What's your sort of fishing like in the summer?
Yeah, well, you cut your teeth on the silty meres as opposed to Lewis with the gravel pits.
Must be your most productive time this summer, because it's only dark for about 4 hours, so you don't sleep so much.
Keep your odds out for a bit.
Did you have a certain tactic on the silty meres when you cut your teeth on there all those years ago in the summer? Did you? I know you and Sean used to do quite a lot up at Reedsmere and things like that.
Back then, it was mostly boilie fishing, trout pellet fishing, and then later on in the summer, it was more trap fishing. Yeah, you weren't going to catch. If you were good, you caught 10 in a year. So you're not baiting up to go and catch 3 or 4 in a session. You're not like
That's where you went wrong.
You're not free rods. You're not free rods on a spot catching multiple numbers. You were trap fishing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't huge amount. However, the back end of the summer, the hemp started to kick in. There was a guy called Mark Burgess. He was he sort of instigated a sort of a tactic that absolutely dominated that lake late summer. So what you do, and we kind of found out about, he was doing it on his own, really good angling, wasn't telling anybody. I mean, that was a club water, but it was like a syndicate. It was wicked back then. I loved it. Anyway, I won't go into that because it was like some of the best angling I've ever had. The group of guys and everything there. But what Mark was doing, he was putting hemp out in big numbers. So
how many grains roughly?
74,000. I don't know. We had these these probably 15-litre buckets or whatever like that, and he would put one of them out per night. Right. And he would consistently do this for a few weeks, and he was fishing he wasn't fishing a particularly popular swim, and back there on the mere, you had to be mobile. The fish were moving around, you had to be, there's various swims in different banks that were good and reasonably consistent, but the fish were mobile. The best anglers were quick to move, to be mobile, to stay on them. And Mark chose a spot that he knew there'd be passing traffic, chose a spot that had a reasonable depth to allow the fish to feed but not be disturbed by other things that were going on. It was like 12 foot deep kind of thing. And he would choose a spot between 2 swims. So if somebody was in one swim, he would go in the other swim. So that he basically had access to this area that he'd been pre-baiting. And like I say, it wasn't the most popular swim for that, because he knew he'd be able to get in one of those 2 swims. Yeah. And he kept baiting it up, and it was just hemp. Nothing else he was putting in, just hemp. And he would just fish a little brown bait over the top of it. He was activate back then. So he'd just use a little activate bait over the top of it. And it got to a stage where he was catching consistently, and everybody else in the lake was slowing down because his spot became so good,
the spot,
that it started to become
totally
dominated. A few of us then, he told a few of us pot hook. He invited us to join in, and then basically over the next couple of years, people knew at the back end of the summer they started to employ this tactic. And I remember it was either the 2nd or 3rd year in that Mark had introduced me and showed me what it was all about. The 2nd or the 3rd year, I remember the month of September, something like the lake did 30 fish. 28 or 29 of them were from this one spot.
Really? Wow.
In this one area. because the fish become that tuned in to what he was giving them, and they wanted it that much.
Conditioned to go there and have food.
But don't get me wrong, I've said this before in other things, that if that swim never gets fished, it's never going to do a bite, and somebody goes, "Oh, you ain't going to catch anything." Well, that swim last did 4 years ago. You did a fish. Well, no one's fished it for 4 years, mate, so no one's going to catch anything from it. So it got worse because the tactic became so obvious that people were doing it.
Yeah.
But not everybody could get into 2 swims. So the lake was busy. There was still probably 20 odd anglers on at the weekend. But still, that particular swim, that area, that tactic did 28, 29 out of 30 fish.
Right.
I think like
amazing.
there's a number of elements that like add up to why that works so much. Consistency is probably the biggest one.
Yep.
And it almost becomes like a natural just area that they can harvest. Like if there was a never-ending bloodworm bed that they just keep coming back to.
I think it's deeper than that. The hemp produces cannabis, yeah? It's the seed. Now, cannabis is addictive. People become drug addicts on cannabis. And what else happens when they smoke cannabis? They get really hungry.
They get the munchies.
So I think by eating the hemp seed, what's happened is not only have they become addicted, they've become really hungry, and then they're just like little zombies. They're not swimming away; they're just mowing around on the spot.
And then by about October, they get really paranoid and don't go near it again.
Strangely enough,
That's actually one of the best descriptions of it I've ever heard.
Yeah.
strangely enough, it had a window. And from the start to the end, it might have taken 2 to 3 weeks to get going. You might get 3 or 4 weeks out of it. And then after that, boom, they didn't want to know.
In the warmer weather.
Now, whether that... Yeah, this is like back end of the summer into September.
Warm enough water, because the carp hasn't got a body temperature, so it can't heat that up. But the water's already heated it up for him. That's why he's getting a hit off of it. Isn't it? Yeah, I get it now.
But-
Louis, I understand it completely.
So there comes
I know
a
what I'm
time...
doing. I'm going home and bought some hemp.
There comes a time where I think the area then... And I've said this before about small clear areas in the weed. When they get too big, they don't want to go near it.
Yeah.
And whether or not they associated that area then with 2 months worth of getting hammered from it, well, I don't want to be there anymore. And then they go back off the rest of the lake, and then the other swims start to produce the odd fish like it used to.
But that's it. And it's not like there was a really big stock of fish.
No.
And if you like, how many fish would you say were in
I
Reeds?
don't know, back there, 80, something like
80,
that.
yeah.
20
So
odd acres.
So, and if you're catching best part of 30 fish off of one spot, that's like 40% of the stock.
Prior to that happening, the month of September, there might be 12, 15 fish out. It was a significant change. It was a significant shift. A lot of fish caught in a very short period of time from one area due to the tactic, due to the bait, due to what was being done. It made a massive difference.
Yeah.
If you were turning up at the lake and you weren't in that spot, you were pissing in the wind. But because it was busy, people were still doing it.
Yeah, of course.
Still going elsewhere, but it was just a real struggle. Real struggle.
Fair one. Well, guys, it's been great listening to all different tactics and that. I'm bringing on to the different tactics and that. I got to put it to you. Have you seen the latest Mozza film on the drains with completely tactics from winter to summer tactic? I know, Lewis, you were in that video and sort of put him onto the drains and the tactics Mozza deployed in the summer to catch those carp as well.
I didn't give him anything tactics-wise. That was all down to him. But
The biggest tactic on that is just finding them.
yeah, the drains there. I grew up fishing as a kid for roach and perch, and there's always been carp in them. Not as many nowadays because of the otter predation, but there's a family of ghosties that live in one stretch, and Mozza nearly caught the biggest ghostie there. Unfortunately, missed out on it. But I just for years have been saying I think we should make a film on there. You're never going to catch anything big, but it's just different. Those old land drains that stop the fens from flooding. They're a different waterway system to a canal or a river, and Yeah,
proper graft on there in it as well.
Mozza volunteered. I would have never have recommended going there in February during a real cold snap with the amount of rain that we were having at that time, and because the way those drains work is they very rapidly fill up with water as it's coming off the fields, and that particular drain goes out into a river that's right on the estuary of the sea. So depending on how much water there is, they'll open gates and let water out and back water up. So it wasn't conveyed that well in the film, really, but I think the water level on the winter trip that he did went up by 3 foot in about 2 hours. It was ridiculous how quick it was coming up because of all of that water, which was going to make it nigh on impossible. But I mean, fair play to him. He stays positive, and
you can see how frustrating it is, though, can't you? You can see mentally what he's going through, and I think that is a massive part of that film.
It was horrific. I went to visit them, and there was an easterly wind, like those drains, because they got high banks up either side. Where the bit where he was doing the night swim, the wind was coming down that direction, so it was like funneled, like a wind tunnel of this Baltic east-northeast wind coming down.
Sounds
it was horrific.
Delightful.
I went there thinking, I'll sit down there with him for an hour or two, punish his brew kit and everything. I came, have you caught anything? No, it's shit. It's freezing cold. I'll see you later. I'm off home. Didn't chit-chat too much. And, it was... I was glad that they decided to go back on for June the 16th and to sort of mark the traditional start to the season, because those drains... They are more like rivers in the sense they have the traditional close season, not like a canal that can stay open. It was probably suited to Mozza being the sort of energetic, let's say, personality that he is. If you're just going to sit in a swim and do nothing for a few days and bait and wait, you're probably going to be very lucky to catch one on there. I think it's a great way of proving that you don't need to be fishing for monsters to really enjoy the challenge of carp fishing. I'd encourage more people to try not just the drains.
I made a movie about fishing on the River Mole by us. Tiny river. I'd never seen a carp in it, and I did tons and tons of work to find out an area where I could catch him, and it took days for me to find them, but I found them. I had 2 in the end, and they meant as much to me as any other carp I've ever caught.
This is the point, and this is why I really like that video, and I feel like we should try and make more of this type of film, because it's different, because it's a challenge. Not that many people are doing it, so you can kind of get your own little thing going as well. But those fish, they'll be, and you said this, they'll be the best double-figure commons that Mozza has ever caught. And he will remember them better than any other double. And they'll mean so much more than many 20s and 30s and even 40s that he's caught. They
because
will
it's
mean
a challenge.
More
because he's angled for
it's
them.
all relative. Like they're miles and miles, which is effectively acres and acres of water, where there's just a small number of carp, and you've got to put all of this effort in to try and catch
It's not
it.
like a river or a canal where there's lock gates like damming
Penning
off
it
sections or whatever. This drain just goes for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles with no break. It gets narrow and wide, deeper, shallower, but it's continuous. That big ghosty that I've sent you videos of that ghosty 7-8 years ago. Like, it lives in an area. I've always thought it was a high double. Moz and Ben said they reckon it was a scraper 20. So it's that sort of size, which is in modern day standards a monster, and it's a ghosty, so it don't count. It's not proper, but it's a cool fish.
But that's like a target. That's a proper. If you go there, it's like I'm going to catch that.
It travels, right? So they were filming on the June the 16th, which was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I think, something like that. I went there on the Sunday because they hadn't been to the drain since February. I hadn't been and had a look at it during the close season because, I was doing my fishing on lakes for big uns. I weren't thinking about double-figure commons or ghosties. So I said, let me go and have a look, because normally in the summer it's overgrown. The drainage board don't do anything to it. They don't dredge it. They don't cut the banks. Nobody fishes it. There won't be match anglers cutting swims out ready for June the 16th. It will just be overgrown. So I went there, and I could hardly even film the water, like, because the nettles and everything were so high up and everything. There's only little gaps I could get in to do it. Anyway, by chance, I found the big ghostie, and it was motor. It wasn't like dawdling. It was swimming really fast, and it was heading, as I was stood on the bank that you can sort of access, it's coming from my left to my right, which is going towards this pumping station. Yeah. So I sent Mozza a video and Ben saying, like, the ghostie's about blah, 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 but it's motoring. They get there 2 days later, go to the bit where I've filmed it. They've seen nothing. They go half a mile down to a bridge, and just by, I don't want to give too much of the film away, but by luck, Mozza stands on this bridge, and this ghostie comes under the bridge. Like, perfect timing.
Absolutely.
And it's going, this time, from that same bank, it's going from right to left, so it's getting further away from the pumping station. So it's already half a mile away from where I saw it when it was swimming in the other direction. It's now going the other way. He's then followed it like another half a mile before, and he's just followed it, just walking, him and Ben walking, and eventually it's met with a group of its mates, and it's give the game away.
Yeah, it's led them to the
give the game away where
They're
fish
good for
are.
that.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are good for that.
Yeah, there was an orange koi in Northey Park when I fished there, and it used to swim around with Kitch, the big common, and that common must have hated that bright orange koi, because if you could see the bright orange koi,
single scale from Ashmead. The reason I knew where he was that winter was because they called him Shagger for good reason. Evidently, in the summer he was very visible. But yeah, he taught me everything where I'd find it.
You can't beat him for that. But yeah, so that fish over the space of 2 or 3 days swam. If that's the only time it's done that journey, it's done 1.5 miles because it's gone that way, back that way, back that way. But how many times did it do that in the 2 or 3 days between me and him being there? They're covering a lot of ground, and yeah, like you say, in lake terms, if you added the volume of water up, it'd be an inland sea that you're trying to catch. I don't know how many fish, but not loads, and you're trying to target.
I remember
doubles.
walking around Raisby with Phil Thompson, and we got up into Sunnymead's corner, climbed the trees like you do. I shortened it right down, but the only fish we saw was Mary's mate, and we're like, oh, bless her heart, you know what I mean? We'll keep going, and we'll see where the masses are and see if there's a bite. And we kept on going. Probably 4 hours later, we got into the back of Bryant's Bay, and there were 2 really good trees you could get up and have a look. They'd done something to the housing bank and cleared all the trees down by then. We climbed the tree, and there was Mary, Malines, they were all there. And about 5 minutes later, out of the blue, Mary's mate came swimming into that swim. And she'd done 1.5 miles in that time, you know, and it was quite amazing to see it. They do travel, and people don't think they do. They think they sit around waiting for the next spot to land, and it's not quite like that.
If you do want to fish on those sorts of places, like they travel and you have to as well. And I think I'm sure Mozza said, like, on his stepometer on his phone, like they were doing best, like on average about 30,000 steps a day.
One of the things that helps you fish that way as well on there is that there's only a few limited areas you can night fish. The vast majority of it is at day only. So the sitting and waiting it out in a bivvy isn't necessarily that easy to do, because you'd be really limited on where you could do that, because at night you'd have to pack up and do something anyway. So I think it kind of was conducive with pushing him to the limit, and he fished really well.
He did fish well.
And effort was rewarded. But again, if people are willing to put a little bit of effort in and make some comments on the YouTube video and on the syndicate, etc. This new series with Mozza, it's about him challenging himself to fish different sorts of venue to what he's used to fishing, and, you know, things a bit out of the blue and everything, a bit out of the ordinary. So if anybody's got suggestions of venues, what they think would be a good challenge, it needs to be semi-realistic. You know, he's only going to have a few days to fish, so it's got to, you know, like one carp in the North Sea is probably not realistic, but, you know,
well, the Dorset Stour, get him to go and catch one out of the sea down there.
There you go. Chili's got his he's commenting already on that. So that's the first recommendation, Dorset Stour.
But that's it. It's venues that you don't see. It's like venues, as far from your average day ticket as you can imagine. That's what we want to go for.
And the beauty of that is, as you said all the way along, Harry, it doesn't have to be a big fish. You know, it's the challenge it creates, and that really is what carp fishing should be all about.
Send him to Windermere and get him to catch one on a swing tip with luncheon meat.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
I don't think we ought to limit him in the tactics. He's going to drive himself around the twist with a lot of the stuff.
But it was a really good film, and definitely worth checking out. And he did catch some lovely fish from
and
it
I think
as well.
that club is £50 a year with the night fishing added in. I think if you just day only fish, it's £20 a year.
It's worth going.
Definitely
worth going.
Great angling. I'm not going to name the angling club because I don't want to upset the locals who got a bit annoyed about us filming there. But
it happens.
It's there's plenty of angling clubs all around the country with stretches of rivers and drains and canals with some fantastic fishing.
There's so many more adventures to be had than I think people realise.
I've got things
because the
popping up in my
majority
brain
of the
here.
content that is made is on places that are well stocked with plenty of carp and easy
Here's one
access
for you.
and
Here's
you
a
can catch
belter.
fish from.
Yeah.
Scotland.
Just the whole of Scotland.
Yeah, go and catch
Loch
carp
Ness.
there.
No, yeah, but it's a difficult thing, isn't it? I know they got a canal up there. There's carp get caught out, and there's a lake they've stocked a few simmos in, but that is an environment that needs some thinking.
Do they have
about.
border force? They might not let Mozza in.
They might not. He does come from the
He'd
very
flash
south
up
of
on,
England.
flash up on the
doesn't he?
radar, wouldn't he? But no, check out the film, guys. It's really good. And like I say, if you do fancy it, there is some wicked fish to be had in the drains. And speaking of fish, we've got our monthly competition now rolling. And I put the fish to the guys. So these are the sort of pictures that the guys have been sending in on the syndicate for the Fish of the Month competition. And before we went on air, we had a couple of entries. Well, there was loads of entries, but I had to narrow it down to like the top 6. So if you're watching this on YouTube, apologies if you're listening to this on your radio or Spotify, the rest of it. I'm now on screen showing some of the entries, but the winner was this man here, that being, was it Jason Brain, I think it was, who won it in the end?
Don't get it wrong.
Jason Brain won it, yes, 39.10. Check that fish out. He won top spot. So, Jason, you've got £100 worth of Fox terminal tackle heading your way.
Just to describe the fish to the people listening, it is a mega dark, really heavily scaled one with a sort of creamy belly.
Yeah, the sort of thing I dribble about. Yeah.
It's a wicked fish,
Yeah,
and
it's a beautiful fish.
well done to Jason. If you
Well
want to
done,
get involved
Jason.
in that, guys, and you want to be in this competition and winning £100 worth of Fox terminal, get over to the syndicate, become a member. If you're out fishing, upload your photos, and that will enter you into the next competition, that being the August podcast. And
how do people find the syndicate?
Just go on Facebook and search Fox Online Community, the syndicate. You'll click on that. That you'll be asked if you want to become a member. Myself or one of the other moderators will accept you. You'll be in the group then, and you'll be talking all things Fox, Spom, and everything carp fishing. So head over there if you want to get involved.
Fantastic.
Before I bring this to a wrap or an end, guys, I have a present for you all. I've kept quiet till now. Yeah. I'm going to try my best to knock the mics away disturbed. But, so, on the syndicate, we have a moderator called Tim Smith. And, sorry, Chilly, I'm going to move that. And Tim is a dab hand at making a certain product. So me and Tim have had
Homebrew.
Me and Tim have had a bit of a chat.
Bit of scrumpy.
There's yours, Chilly. There's yours, Scott.
For the people
wicked.
listening right now, Dean is handing out plain
Mr. Porter.
cardboard boxes
And
to
that's
everyone
Mr. Charrington.
with our names on.
Oh.
And these
opening?
are for the podcast
Wow.
table.
Oh, that's quality. Not scrumpy, but something that we can drink scrumpy from.
Oh,
Look
look.
at that.
So these will
Thank
be
you
used
very
now.
much,
So we've
Tim.
got proper mugs on our table. So this is from myself and Tim.
Oh, from yourself
cheers.
and Tim.
Cheers,
Yeah.
Tim.
From
Are you
as well.
taking the credit for what?
Well, thank
Tim's
you,
done?
Dean, but
Tim is the man.
Tim's the
My,
man.
my
evidently.
name's
Thank you,
my
Tim.
name's the only name that didn't fit
Yeah,
down the
too
middle.
long.
It had to go on the bottom.
I mean, it's going to take a lot for me to replace the Star Trek mug, which has lived with me for a long time. But
Bit of
Cheers.
carpy paracord
Yeah.
on the handle.
Yes,
Special
good.
guest.
Very nice.
I think it's the
Special guest mug as well.
It's the paracord.
So when we get our
Oh,
guests
yeah.
in.
Yeah, so a little bit of
You're
military
Chile,
in there
you're
as well.
Charrington. What are you? Porter, Day.
I've
You
got Watson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got
Tim's
Chile.
a
Beautiful.
tattoo artist, and he's got lots of little designs, and he does stickers and bits and pieces.
Fantastic.
He's got his own YouTube channel as well.
He can finish my tattoo on my leg. I've had it for years and
He's
I've
a
not
dab
had
band.
it finished.
He's a dab band.
Anyway, we need to wrap this podcast
We do.
up, Dean, and you need
Cheers,
to go and get
Tim.
these cups filled
I
with some
do.
tea, my
I
friend.
do. Guys, just before we go, to celebrate the new channel, I have got 2 of these cups to give away to 2 lucky listeners, watchers, viewers.
Giving a cup away on a fishing podcast. That's
I know.
a novel idea, Dean.
So 2 is up for grabs, and in the comments of the YouTube comments, get in it. I want to know, what tactic did Lewis use earlier in the podcast to catch his latest fish? What was it? Put it in the comments, and that will enter you in this competition to be with a chance of winning one of these mugs. Other than that, guys, once again, thank you ever so much for joining me. Thanks for
you.
watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Good.
Cheers, guys.
Bye bye.
Oh, I'm hungry.